It's time for Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle.
Welcome on into another edition of Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle. I'm, of course, the aforementioned Trey Lyle. Joining me now, like he does as a producer, or sometimes with me, is Caleb Barnes. You ask yourself, well, typically you're solo to start the podcast, Trey, and you're right. But typically we don't have a championship on the line on Sunday, so we're doing things a little bit different. No interview today. We're gonna go with a how we got there, how each driver got to the championship four. Caleb, first, how are you doing? And of course, we'll still have our typical "What's Still Hot" soundbite of the week segments and checkered flag a little bit later on. But Caleb, ready to dive into I think what is characterizing, and maybe this will be my first question to you. At least in the next gen era, do you feel like this is the most wide open championship four that we have seen?
Um, I don't know. It's hard to say because it feels like in the next gen era, every time Penske's gotten that to that final round, everybody just knows what to expect. I think that's one contributing thing to it. I just think the other thing is and we'll get into it here in a second. It just feels like all four drivers have had a pretty equal season, all things considered. Just when you look at wins, top fives, laps led, points, all like whenever you look at the actual point standings and not the playoffs and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what I think makes this feel really wide open is because like some of the other years, who maybe the championship favorite would be, like the guy who'd had the best season. But then this year, it doesn't really feel like any one of these guys has necessarily had a better season over the others, just because you can pull so many different stats to make different cases for these guys. So yeah, it'll be an interesting race for sure. And I know every year people like to talk about who is the most deserving champion and everything, but I think this year, no matter who comes out on top, you could kind of make a case for just about any of these four drivers.
Looking at the breakdown of this, let's dive into with the first person. We're going to go with Kyle Larson. Larson making another championship appearance, the 2021 Cup Series champion. Looking at his stats from this season, he had 3 wins on the season, 21 top 10s, 14 top 5s, an average finish of 11.6. He led over 1,100 laps. Coming into the season, overall, how would you assess the performance by one Kyle Larson?
It was great to start off the season. It's about what you would expect from Kyle Larson. And then we talk about it. You mentioned 3 wins on the season. Well, that third and final win was at Kansas right before we got into the whole going into the year for the month of May and all that stuff. And ever since that, it felt like Kyle Larson really wasn't the same. And I know Larson, and he's talked about his team and how resilient they've been to battle back. They just had a lot of, I guess, not DNFs throughout the summer, just a lot of poor finishes. I'm looking through his stats right now and really didn't get going on a good hot streak until Loudon a few weeks ago. That started a streak of, I guess they've only had one finish outside of the top 10 since then. So it was a great start to the season, kind of what you'd expect from Kyle Larson. And then Charlotte, the Indianapolis double, that all happened. That Kansas win was literally the week before Charlotte. And then since then, he crashed at Charlotte and things. He just hasn't felt. He's been good. He's led laps since then, but there hasn't been a race that you've gone out and seen and felt that Kyle Larson is necessarily the favorite. You can make a case for Las Vegas, but um, he's had a good season. He had a great season early, and I think that was enough to get him enough playoff points to really help him get through the playoffs here so far. But we'll see. I was trying to dig in to do some research, and there's only 2 times in this format that the eventual champion went winless in the first 3 rounds, only to win in the championship, and that was Kyle Busch in both of his championships. He didn't win in any of the previous 9 races in the playoffs, and then he went on to win the championship race. So that's what Kyle Larson is looking to do. He hasn't won any races compared to the other 3 in any of these rounds of the playoffs, and I think it's just really hard whenever you haven't broken through to victory lane to finally make that happen in the championship race when you haven't been able to get it done in any of these other playoff rounds.
Yeah, you look at it. He's fourth in average finish. I believe he is. As I look at this now, he is fourth. He's tied for second in top fives, and he is currently second in top tens. So he's been very consistent this year. It's probably been one of the more, Larson is known for his highs and lows, is probably his best asset. And despite the fact that he's been known for, maybe this has been one of his most consistent seasons in terms of performance. I do think the 5 team is just a so well organized machine that, he does have a shot in this. He's done this at Phoenix, being the 2021 champion. He has obviously the 4 wins on the season aforementioned, which puts him, I believe, second, as well, ironically, or excuse me, third, because SVG, he has 3 wins on the season. He's tied with Byron for fourth, excuse me, on the season. And if you want to really think about it, he just had to outduel Chris Robel at one track, which was Martinsville, and he did that this past weekend, and he is well on his way. Well, speaking of Martinsville, the guy, and we're going to talk more in depth about the actual crowning moment at Martinsville. I want to look big picture with William Byron here, as William Byron on the season was the regular season points champion. Obviously he's looking, he's a 2017 Xfinity Series champion, a 2-time Daytona 500 champion, including winning the Daytona 500 this year. He has 16 top 10s, 11 top 5s, a 10.171 average start, a 14 average finish. Overall, Byron needed a crowning performance. He's had probably a struggling playoffs, even worse than uh, Larson this postseason, but ultimately he broke through with a big win at Martinsville. How would you assess how William Byron got to the championship?
Yeah, I mean, he's done it the way that he's always been, is just kind of by running pretty consistently. I know the average finish isn't where it's not his best average finish, where he's at right now, but just throughout the year, I mean, he's had all these performances where just I know they talk about him being pretty high up in the defense rankings, but a lot of that is just because he starts up front and stays up front. And I will say, it seems like the races where he gets behind, like there are races where he'll start up front, and then if he gets behind, he has a harder time making that up. But just the start of the season, outside of, I guess, Atlanta and the spring Martinsville, he just was super consistent, running inside the top 5, top 10, collecting stage points. That's a big thing. You look at, I know there's that account that posts like the Winston Cup Series standings, and Byron's pretty far down in that, but compared to like the points, the way they collect it now, and Racing Reference has that as well, and Byron's right up at the top of that because he just collects a lot of stage points. We know he dominated that race at Darlington. He dominated at Charlotte. He wasn't able to pick up the win in both of those, but he's had quite a few of those really, really good performances that maybe could have ended in wins. Think about Michigan. He was pretty good. I guess Iowa was more of a strategy thing, but yeah, and it's weird because the opening round they did what they needed to do. It was quiet. There wasn't really any pressure on them. The second round they ran really well, and then it felt like the third round was like the same thing. He was running really well, and then those things happened at the end of Las Vegas, at the end of Talladega, that took him out of contention. And you wonder if that took a little bit of the momentum, the wind out of their sails. But then they go and win last week in Martinsville, and so I think that's a big momentum boost. And not gonna lie, Hendrick, all these team, I think Byron and Larson's team especially have been talking about like, oh, Hendrick, we feel a lot better at these flatter tracks now to really gain on Penske. But I wasn't buying what they were selling. I wasn't quite believing them yet. But then after their performance last week at Martinsville, I'm kind of starting to believe maybe they are actually really prepared for Phoenix next week. So they did that 24 team especially felt like worked really hard to kind of exercise some of those demons at these flat tracks at Loudon, at Gateway, and especially at Martinsville. And that's how they ended up picking up the win.
Yeah, I would say for William Byron, we're going to talk more about the moment itself and was this his crowning moment in his career. I do believe that at Martinsville, he's going to be, later on the podcast. But for him this season, he's kind of been under the radar. He dominated almost through a perfect game at Darlington. Then the race kind of went away from him. Then he almost kind of does the same thing at Charlotte with the 600, and the race gets away from him. And then this race, it looked like it was about to happen again, where he dominates the first half 3/4 of the race, then Ryan Blaney is able to get control, but ultimately he had the best car and he won the race. I think for William B, this is a guy who it felt like could get to the 9-yard line and just couldn't break through and get to the goal line, and this could be the moment for him in Phoenix. He's won in Phoenix before, I believe, and obviously he knows how to win in this format, being the 2017 Xfinity Series champion. And I know that's a different series and all, but this is one of the being the regular season champion. I think that helped him, at least if you want to talk about this format. Like, this was the ideal format in terms of like using the regular season mattering for this format. This year it worked out ironically, and probably what would be the last year, because you could, if you rank like the top 5 guys, I think these 4 make the list, and maybe 5th is Christopher Bell, and you maybe want to take one out and put Ryan Blaney in that top 5. I wouldn't disagree with you. Anyways, if you think about this for William Byron, ultimately, getting the win at Daytona, it seems like they took a little bit more of a Penske approach, where they kind of, especially in the playoffs, they didn't pick up till late, because they had 2 really good races at Talladega and Las Vegas, and just had bad luck take them out, where they got forced in the must-win position at Martinsville, and they go on to win. I think for Willie B, and I mean, there's one guy where the legacy could change the most, and we're going to go to him last. We're doing this kind of in reverse order of how they got in. William Byron here, I think for him, like, it's going to be interesting. He did not have a good playoffs, kind of like Larson, except for that final round, and ultimately he did enough to get in, and we'll see if it gets it done. Anyways, moving to, I think the guy who had the best playoffs and before his engine blew up was well on his way to have one of the best average finishes in the playoffs was Chase Briscoe. His first season with Joe Gibbs Racing in the 19 team, 3 wins on the season, a 12.54 average finish, which I believe is the best in NASCAR. Excuse me, it is second best behind Christopher Bell on this season. He has the most top 5s on the season, as well as he has the 3rd most top 10s on the season. So you look at it, you break it all down. Briscoe has been probably the best in the playoffs this year. This is like a 2-part question in terms of how they got here. What do you think about year 1 without Martin Truex Jr., and you want to maybe focus on James Small, the development of the 19 team itself this season in terms of making a statement of getting to the championship 4 without the Hall of Fame driver?
Yeah, it's certainly a hallmark year for Chase Briscoe, and he set himself a new standard for what we've come to expect from that driver. I think we've known that this team, I mean, they've been good since the Cole Pern days, even before they were the 19 team, and when they were back with Front Row, those 2 worked well together, and then they brought that over to the 19, and then James Small, I think people kind of, after going winless last year with Truex, he kind of got a bad rap. But I mean, you think back to 2023, they were the regular season champions and they won 3 races that year, had a pretty good season that year too. I think it's kind of like a redemption year almost for James Small and for the rest of that 19 group. But to have Chase Briscoe come in and do what he did, I think whenever you looked at that hire, I think a lot of people didn't necessarily question the talent of Chase Briscoe, but it was just so hard to evaluate with where they were at with the Haas equipment and where that was going towards the end of their time. And it felt like he's a driver very similar to what we've seen with all these other dirt guys with Larson and Reddick and Christopher Bell, where they're really good, they're really fast, and then they end up driving in over their head and making mistakes. And Chase found that limit this year, and he had some really impressive wins with the fuel mileage at Pocono, with the race at Darlington, starting up front there, and just basically he pretty much dominated that race. And then, I mean, Talladega is not one that I think anyone was really expecting, but 3 wins setting the new mark is impressive. And really, it started with his qualifying efforts, because it felt like the first quarter or the first third of the season, you weren't really expecting him to go out and compete for wins like you might have Denny Hamlin or Christopher Bell. But then he had that streak where he sat on the pole for like 3 races in a row. And he ran well up front to start early, but then couldn't hold on to it. But then during the summer, that's whenever that qualifying speed transitioned into race speed. And that's where I think that set him up for this consistent playoffs. And Chase is one. Looking at his stats at Phoenix, it's a little bit of like whenever he goes back and forth between having a really good finish and a not so great finish. But a lot of those not so great finishes were because he was involved in some sort of an incident. So whenever Chase is there around at the end of the Phoenix race, he's going to be in contention for a top 5, if not the win. That's where he got his first career win. Earlier this year, his two teammates, Bell and Hamlin, were the ones battling for the win. I think Briscoe was taken out in a crash for that one, or else he could have been up there. So I think he's definitely like, we talk about these drivers and they're not being a favorite. Like one of my other stats is that there's only one driver who's won the second race in the round of 8 to win the championship. That was Kyle Larson, but that year Kyle had also won the first race in the round of 8. So really winning this middle race, what I'm trying to say is winning that middle race in the round of 8 doesn't seem to do a lot for helping teams get ready for the championship race. But this year that race was Talladega. Teams didn't put as much prep into it. And Chase, I mean, he's really good at Phoenix, and he's surprised a lot of people, I feel like, this year already.
Yeah, Chase is like one of the last true grinders of the sport. I mean, the story, of him sleeping on someone's couch when he moved to North Carolina, the fact he was racing for his childhood hero in Tony Stewart, and he finally gets the Cup Series, and essentially it's on the downturn of Stewart Haas Racing, where Tony wants to get out of the sport, and he lands at this. He was literally like minutes away from signing with the 21 car before Joe Gibbs calls him and says, "Hey, I want you in my 19." And the rest is history. It finally feels like he met his full potential. I mean, he's truly, I don't say he's an old school kind of guy in terms of the way he came up, because I think there's still some of that in this sport. But, I'll phrase it this way: in an era where the money, and we're going to talk about money a little bit later on with what's still hot, the money dictates the most, especially at the driver ranks. For him to break through when he didn't have the money, and this could be his crowning moment, is very, very, very fascinating. Now, let's get to the one we saved for last. He won at Las Vegas to lock himself in. 60 wins on his career. This season he won 6 races, which was the most. 17 top 10s, 14 top 5s, 4 poles, 816 laps led, a 12.2 average finish. Obviously a 3-time Daytona 500 champion, a 3-time Southern 500 champion, a Coke 600 champion. Has also won the Bristol night race. The only crown jewel avoids him is the Brickyard. It is, of course, Denny Hamlin, who obviously is currently the greatest driver to never win a championship. We are currently, if you look over my shoulder, hint, he was in this championship in a championship he fell short in. Ultimately, I don't know if I want to ask about Denny's season. It just feels like he was really good this season, and this is another time where it feels like this could be Denny's moment. Ultimately, for Denny to break through, also while suing the sport, also while like owning a race team and everything to go with it, where would he win? Where does he break through in the all-time ranks? Does he make, like, let's say the top 10, where he's top 10 and wins if he wins this championship? Is that where kind of he starts to be, the conversation with him starts?
He's definitely up there, but there's a part of me that wants to say, like, and he's talked about it, at least under this format. It feels like winning the championship doesn't, like, it shouldn't be held into quite as high as a regard, as I know some of the full season stuff has, just because it's so hard to do and you kind of got to get so lucky with it. So part of me wants to say if he wins the championship, at least this year, like, it it wouldn't necessarily elevate the status too much, but at the same time, for a driver that has done so much, for him to be able to get a championship under this format that's so hard to win, I mean, I do think that definitely elevates him in conversation. And it's weird, like you said, he's just been really good this season. And I know some of the past years, I think we've kind of judged Denny based on like the momentum that he's had throughout the year, where like he has a really strong spring or he has a really good summer, or you look at the tracks and he starts off the playoffs really hot and everybody's like, oh, this is the year. But to start this year, I mean, Denny won those 2 races early in the year at Martinsville and Darlington, and he really dominated the one at Martinsville. But I felt like you didn't really notice him being up front every week until that summer stretch started when we got on Prime. And that's when you started seeing the battle, in that summer stretch pretty much every week between two drivers, Denny Hamlin and William Byron. And that's who I kind of think it's going to come down to. Denny's had this thing really for most of the season, but especially the second half of the season where he does really well and has really good finishes for one or two races, and then the next one or two races are like not as good finishes. And then he comes back the next race, has a great finish, and then not so great. So it's like back and forth. And I will say he had obviously had the great race at Las Vegas, and then the last 2 weeks have been not so great. So, I mean, if you're timing it out, this is the time for him to show up and have another great race and be that vintage Denny Hamlin where he shows up the track, likes his car. He finished second here in the spring, and my last stat poll is since the start of these elimination style playoffs, 8 of the 11 champions won either the first or in third race of the round of 8. So you look at the two drivers that won that, it was Denny Hamlin and William Byron. And so I think that really points to like one of those two, I think, are your two that you're going to look at. And ultimately, I think I feel like the last like 10 years I've been like, this is Denny Hamlin's year. But I mean, why not? He might as well be his
All
year.
right, you're teasing your pick for the end of the pod, so we'll move on. So that was how everyone got here. All 4 championship, 4 contenders. By the way, every night during the championship week, Brian Nolan and I will be talking live, either previewing a championship 4 race, reacting to media day, starting Thursday night. So this comes out on Thursday. Friday morning, you should expect a pod. Saturday morning, expect a pod. Sunday morning, expect a pod out for frontstretch.com. Now, let's get to the latest news. Lawsuit news, sort of, with what's still hot.
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
What's still hot, brought to you by no one. If you want to sponsor us, let us know. But anyways, Bob Hockris tweeted, now with the lawsuit going forward, the charter agreement financials have been basically revealed. And basically, just to break this little number down, the total pool money for 2025 was $431,373,000. And basically, after you do all this math, which I'm not good at, and you can go to back to Bob's tweet as I showed on the screen if you're watching the video version of this. Basically, $141,000 is the payout to teams who are chartered per race. That, if you do that times 38 races, is $5.3 million. And then you get about $2 million to win the championship. So at base, you're getting $5.3 million per season. Caleb, when you saw this, 1, were you shocked? And 2, it feels like to me this is a bad look for NASCAR, where you're making $1.1 billion and your teams are getting roughly less than half of the money. And I know part of the pie will go to tracks. Like, it's not an exact math science, but it does seem like in an era where it could be, it feels like more should go to the teams. They're not even getting half, and that's kind of jarring when you've broken down race by race.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Trey, you say you're not good at math. I'm not good with finances. I don't know a ton about money or breaking it down or anything, but it does, like when you mentioned the big number that NASCAR gets versus looking at these numbers of what the teams are making, it does seem pretty small, 141,000 per event. And what I don't know is like the rest of the finances, like where all that money goes, and kind of where they're getting that money. I know a lot of it comes from the TV contracts, and then like I don't know which direction it goes towards some of the racetracks and having to set up and pay for the events, because there are, I mean, I think, and I'll let you get to the NFL comparison here in a little bit, but I mean, there's 36, technically 38 NASCAR events every year versus like an NFL team having like 16 games in the regular season plus the playoffs. Now you look at other major league sports and MLB, NBA, they have a ton of events every year. So maybe that doesn't matter as much, but I think my big takeaway from all this, and even from earlier this week as well, is just, I think the teams have gone a very long way in making their case. I know they've had a few rulings go against them early with the injunctions and everything, but I think with the dismissal of NASCAR's countersuit that happened, and then with this revelation now, I think it's setting the teams up for them to basically show like, hey, like this is the reason why we brought this suit forward, because NASCAR has all this money. They have control over all these parts that we're using, over the car, over the majority of the racetracks. They tell us where we can and cannot go race. They're kind of more or less trying to I think part of the argument was they're trying to take control of drivers with that driver rewards program. And so I think this stuff, just the more that comes out, and especially this is why NASCAR didn't really want to get to the discovery phase, because it just continues to show that, hey, like there's a huge imbalance here in the finances, and like something is going to have to change. And I'll be really curious to see what that is once we get into the trial phase, and then depending on which way that goes, like what will be the next steps for the sport as a whole.
Yeah, another note about the trial, which I don't know if we're going to talk much about, we're going to move to our next topics, is that Judge Bell did throw out the countersuit from NASCAR, which is a big win for the team. I know Jordan Bianchi did some great reporting about how settlement talks got real close, but the argument about legal fees, NASCAR left the table against that. It seemed like the teams were going to get maybe more of a permanent charter structure, and it seems like that got left at the, the 10-yard line, so to say. But I do want to move to something that was confirmed today or recently by Chris Rice of Colleague Racing, is that they are pausing their Xfinity program. Obviously, they're increasing their presence in the Truck Series for the first time with Ram. They hinted that they would come back at some point. I don't think this is necessarily shocking, considering all the resources they are giving to the Truck Series. 5 trucks next season? They ended their relationship with RCR. But I will ask you, does the fact they use the language pause indicate that Dodge is wanting to explore not just the Truck Series going long term, in terms of maybe the soon to be O'Reilly's series and possibly even the Cup Series?
Yeah, I think that's the good takeaway from it, is that pausing it kind of infers, because I think that's some of the question of with them going to Dodge, like what becomes of Colleague Racing and kind of their alliance with Chevrolet and RCR and everything, and at least on the Cup side. And then I know that had been kind of the rumor and what people were asking questions about for quite a bit on the Xfinity O'Reilly side of things, is what becomes of that team, because of their emphasis on the Truck Series program and starting 5 teams. I mean, that is a lot of teams. Where it is like a little sad, hurts my heart a little bit, is because like Colleague Racing is one of those teams that 10 years ago you thought of as like an Xfinity Series staple, where they didn't have the Cup program, they didn't have the Truck program, but they were a consistent force in the Xfinity Series with Blake Cook. And then they kind of grew into like having AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley, Ross Chastain, like those years, and they were Xfinity powerhouse for a little bit, and then they made the jump to Cup, and it feels like it kind of took away maybe a little bit from their Xfinity program. And so this kind of does make me sad to see like the pausing of it, I guess. But at the same time, it does give you hope that like Colleague will be the ones to kind of drag Dodge along and bring in that new manufacturer to help, especially like bringing that money in, starting with the lower series. Those are the series that have really been, I mean, we talk about the financial struggles of the Cup side. I mean, I don't even want to imagine what it's been like for those Xfinity and Truck teams trying to make it. So if they're able to bring that money in, and starting with the trucks, and then hopefully all things go well and they can unpause, I guess, push play back on their Xfinity Series program with a new manufacturer.
All right, Caleb. Well, we got a soundbite of the week. It is the defending race winner, the one who won at Martinsville, William Byron, about discussing his thoughts post-race. So we have that now for the soundbite of the week.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm going to bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track racing.
It's time for the sound bites of the week.
Two things, William. First off, I want to start with the contact with Ryan. Your view, your approach. He thought there was nothing foul about it. You both were racing for the win. So from how you drove into turn one, what was your play there?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you guys want to see, right? We're going for it, and I feel like in that situation, I never wanted to make contact because I felt like I had a good position, like I was inside of them, but we also had the lap car, and I can't see where the lap car is in that instance, and so I just knew I wanted to commit to the corner and have position, and I hate that we made contact, but I think he was probably leaving just enough space as well, and I was going into the corner committed, so that's just kind of fighting for space, but it's hard racing. We both want to make the championship four, and it's a race win, so it's no ill will, but it's just it's hard racing, and you racing for the win.
The last 2 weeks, the amount of points this team has seen slip away in the third stage after how well you've run during the race, I think it'd be understandable if you were, down in the dumps or worried or came in yesterday and stressing. But outwardly, you seem like you've been very calm, business, focus forward. Do you have us fooled, or do you think the last couple years, having gone through this playoff run, being in the championship before, has all that experience helped how you've handled this round, and then especially coming into this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just have good people around me and good perspective, and I found that perspective. I don't know exactly when, but I just found it, and I felt good coming here. Obviously I was nervous, like everyone's nervous. They want to win, and they want to do the best job they can. They don't want to let their team down. That's the biggest feeling. But I just came here with I knew I had prepared. I knew I'd done everything I needed to do this week. In some ways I had worked harder, in other ways I didn't work as hard or gave myself a rest, and I felt like I just was prepared. I was going to do everything I could do in the race car and see what the result was from that. So that was my mindset, and I think I'm just thankful to have good people around me and good team. And but definitely the last 2 weeks were very depressing because they were just there was no result, and almost when Talladega happened the way it did, I was almost numb to the result because I'm like, it just seems like it's just been happening this way. So you just kind of keep digging your heels in, and we just came here with a lot of determination, and our team could have gone one or two ways. We could have been like, okay, Vegas didn't go well, Talladega we had a shot to win, whatever happens at Martinsville, but we came here on offense, and I think that's what I'm super proud of. It was a very freeing position to be in, having to race to win, not like the last couple of years where you had to count points, and that freed me up inside the car as well, and I think our team just put everything out there this weekend. It was the ultimate test for our group, the ultimate one we've been through yet, and that was pretty cool to see.
There you have it. William Byron got it done. He was our focus of our soundbite of the week. Caleb, Willie B, I want to ask this when how he got here. It seemed to me there was a clutch factor question when it came to William Byron. He was really good. Obviously the 2 races this year he lost late. It just seemed to me, I go back to a Darlington race where Joey Logano kind of stole it from him late. It seems to me that this is sort of, I know he won a race where he could have made it in the Daytona race. I think the first Daytona race before when it was the cutoff race before the playoffs. But I'm pretty sure if he finished second, he still would have made the playoffs. I think he was good at points at that point. But still, do you think this was the crowning moment for William Byron? It's either this race or obviously he's won 2 Daytona 500s. But do you think ultimately this was the crowning achievement so far for William Byron?
I definitely think so far, especially given that you look at the way the first Daytona 500, he was up there at the front, but the way he won the 500 this year, he just kind of, the front 8 cars crashed and he got around them. So this was a much more determined drive. Like you mentioned, that clutch factor question, that's kind of been the story of his career, I feel like, is he starts off the season really well. Whether you're talking about a season or a race, William starts off really well, and then just kind of like he still runs well, but he's not quite as good at the finish. You think about some of the seasons where he wins 2, 3, 4 races early, and then he has trouble winning in the second half of the season when it really matters. And I mean, I was thinking about. I guess it had hit me when I was thinking about race picks and stuff going into Sunday with Byron starting on the pole. That before this weekend, he's only won one playoff race before that, and that was like Texas in 2023, I think. So it's just a second playoff win, but it came like you see the last couple of years at Martinsville whenever he had a hard time hanging on to those points. And he started off the race well there and was in a perfect position. And then just as the race went on, he kept bleeding spots and the car was falling off and it seemed like all the pressure was on. But this time he started off and led laps early, just like he had at Darlington and Charlotte. But then in those races, whenever he lost the lead, they couldn't get back up to the front. This race, whenever he lost the lead, that was what I thought was going to happen. It was going to be the same thing, same script. Ryan Blaney was looking at his championship 4 spot, but Byron tracked him back down and showed that determination, especially with kind of the physicality at the end too. Byron's one of those drivers that even whenever a lot of stuff's on the line, you don't think about him getting too physical, but even that move, kind of moving Blaney, surprised me a little bit as well. So I think that just showed how determined he was to get it done and to make up for kind of the anti-clutch factor that they had at Martinsville the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, even the one where he won the champion or got to the championship 4, it kind of just fell in his lap. He didn't necessarily. I think he had that like one restart, but he struggled all day. But William Byron gets it done at Martinsville. He's into the championship 4. The regular season champion makes the champ 4. Well, let's pick it. Time for the checkered flag.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Final thought to anything you want to rant, rave, or review? Caleb Barnes, it is time to pick a champion. We'll pick all 3 series. But so starting in the truck series, obviously Corey Heim is there. He is the dominant champion. You have, I think, maybe his biggest challenger, since Lane Riggs did not make it there. You have Ty Majeski, you have Caden Honeycutt, and of course you have Tyler Ankrum. Ultimately, are you taking Corey Heim or you're not?
Yes, I think there's been quite a few moments this season where I thought about Majeski, and I guess Lane Riggs didn't make it, but Caden Honeycutt's a pretty good short track racer as well. And Majeski's been really, really good at Phoenix in the past, but Majeski's also been good at these other flat tracks, and Corey Heim's been just as good, if not better, there this year. And I think no matter what happens, I think that 11 truck, that 11 team, that driver of the 11 in the truck series, anyways. I don't think he's going to be denied this year. So yeah, I'm taking Corey Heim.
Moving to the Xfinity series, so you have Connor Zilic, Carson Quapple, Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love. You also have Justin Allgaier, Connor Zilic, the 21 and the 19 also battling for the owner's title. If you want to get creative and pick 2 separate, you're more than welcome to, but I'm not. I'm also going with the guy who's been dominant all season in this one. By the way, I'm picking Corey Heim. I figured.
Obvious.
It's kind of obvious. And then I'm also going the obvious pick. I'm going Connor Zilic, even though I really think his biggest challenge is Justin Allgaier. But yeah, I just think, again, he's been too good this season. That team has been too good. I think in one race, he's too talented. And this is his only shot to get the Xfinity title because he's moving up. Give me the 88 in Connor Zilic. Who you got?
Maybe I'm just thinking too creatively and being different for the sake of being different. I think Justin Allgaier is a real big threat because we know how good he is at Phoenix. I'm just worried that just for whatever reason, Phoenix isn't going to suit the 88 as well. And I'm a little bit superstitious. You got this whole Talladega run where after the first Talladega race, when Connor was injured and sat out, he came out and just busted it off top 10, top 5, had that super long streak, that consecutive, all those great finishes. And then that ended at Talladega. And I know we just had the one race last week, so it's kind of hard to see if that's indicative of one race. But it kind of makes me wonder. I feel like maybe that gets into the head of the driver of the 88, and I think a driver that might be able to sneak out and win this thing. He's been pretty good the last couple weeks. Is I think just out of nowhere we might see Carson Kvapil come in and have a really good race, pull a Daniel Hemrick in whatever year that was, 2020 or 2021. I think Carson Kvapil comes out and is going to be competitive this weekend and maybe surprise a lot of people.
All right. Time to put your money where your mouth is. Cup Series, Briscoe, Hamlin, Byron, Larson. We talked about how they got here. You heavily hinted on who you're picking. Who you got?
I did. This one's I'm so wishy-washy like Charlie Brown. I could make a case for every driver. I could be like, oh, Briscoe's your dark horse, but then Larson hasn't won in a while and he's your dark horse. And ultimately, I've said this the last couple of years. I feel like every year I'm like, this is Denny Hamlin's year. But in those years, I will say he didn't even make the championship four whenever I was like, oh, this might be Hamlin's year. So I think it's one of those things you talk about whenever drivers get more relaxed and like act like they don't care as much, things actually go better for them. And I feel like that's been Denny this year. He's set his goal is to win 60. It's not necessarily as much about the championship. It was about getting 60. And he did hit that goal. And I think he's out there just having fun. He knows he's just got a few years left. And I don't think he's quite feeling the pressure that he has in past years. And I think that ultimately will make the difference. And we'll see the 11 doing donuts and hoisting his first championship trophy.
I, unfortunately, if you watch the end of the watch party, did not pick Denny Hamlin. I picked the guy I'm just going with the guy who performed the best in the playoffs and is really good at Phoenix, and I went with Chase Briscoe. Something about this 19 team just screams championship to me. I'm going off of vibes. I think the 19 has it. Now, maybe the bad luck of Hamlin has continued blue in Martinsville and not Phoenix is a good sign for him. But I think all four could get it done. I wouldn't be shocked if like the 12 or the 22 actually win the race, and then they what is it, 2 years ago now? Ross won the race. Was it Blaney's year?
23. Yeah, Blaney's year.
Okay, Blaney's year. Ross won the race, and then could have that again. But yeah, I think the 19 gets it done. All right, Caleb.
Did you see the video of Chase's son Brooks playing video games?
Yes.
Talking about championship vibes. That gave me kind of good vibes for them.
Yep, championship vibes all around. I'm a vibes guy, so what can I say? All right, Caleb. Anything else you want to plug before getting on out here? Reminder: podcasts, they'll be out on your feed, and they're audio only. Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. So Friday morning, Brian, who will be at the race, Brian Nolan and I, Brian will be in Phoenix. We'll have media day reaction plus a preview of the truck, reaction to the truck championship, and a preview of Saturday, and then a preview of Sunday with a reaction to Saturday, preview of Sunday on Sunday morning, and then, of course, the reaction to Sunday winning the championship will be hosted by Caleb Barnes with Stock Car Scoop after the championship race. Caleb, anything else you want to plug before you get on out here?
Yeah, Stock Car Scoop after the championship race. I don't know which of us will be taking the lawsuit article yet this week. I do have to.
Could be a busy one.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy one. I've got with Halloween 2 coming up this weekend. I might have to help with going and shooting high school football games. So we'll have to rock paper scissors for who gets that. But there's a lot of things to cover in this week's update.
Well, for at Caleb Barnes _, I'm at Trey Lyle VT signing off for this special Bringing the Heat with Trey Lyle. Bye, everybody.
I'm Caleb Barnes with FrontStretch.com. Come back soon for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.